If you've ever wondered why the more you give, the less you're valued, why the more understanding you become, the more invisible you feel, then don't blink, because what you're about to hear might completely rewrite how you see relationships. This isn't about hating women. This isn't about becoming cold or arrogant. This is about waking up from a lie that has quietly ruined the confidence of millions of men. You were told that being nice would make you chosen, that being available would make you loved, that swallowing your pride would make you respected. But look at the results. Look at how often you're overlooked, tested, or taken for granted. Look at how tired you are from giving explanations to people who never truly listen. That exhaustion isn't random. It's a signal. What if the very thing you think makes you a good man is the reason you're not taken seriously? What if the problem was never that you were too weak, but that you were never taught where your strength should live? Most men are fighting the wrong battle. They're trying to win affection instead of building authority. They're trying to be liked instead of being grounded. This conversation is uncomfortable because it strips away illusion. It forces you to confront how often you've abandoned yourself to keep someone else comfortable. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You'll start noticing patterns everywhere. In your silence, in your over-explaining, in the moments you knew you should have walked away, but stayed. Stay until the end, because this isn't just about attraction. It's about reclaiming your spine, your direction, and your sense of self. And once that clicks, you won't just think differently. You'll move differently. Let's slow this down, because this is where most men misunderstand the entire game. When someone tells you, just be nice, it sounds moral, safe, even intelligent. But no one ever explains what nice actually turns into when it replaces identity. Niceness, when it isn't anchored in self-respect, becomes a strategy, not a virtue. And the moment kindness turns into a strategy to be chosen, it stops being attractive. Psychologically, attraction isn't built on compliance. It's built on polarity, on the presence of a person who knows where they end and where another begins. When a man is overly nice, what he's often communicating without words is uncertainty. Uncertainty about his value, his position, and his right to take up space. And the human nervous system can feel that instantly, not logically. Viscerally, a man who is constantly agreeable may think he's being emotionally intelligent. In reality, he's outsourcing his self-worth. Every yes becomes a quiet plea. Every sacrifice becomes a transaction waiting to be repaid. And when the repayment doesn't come in the form of attraction, affection, or loyalty, resentment quietly builds. That resentment doesn't make him stronger. It makes him bitter, passive, and confused. Here's the part most people won't tell you. Women don't respond to niceness the way men are taught to perform it. They respond to clarity, to a man who is kind because he chooses to be, not because he's afraid of losing connection. Kindness that comes from fear has a scent. It feels heavy. It feels needy. And neediness, no matter how polite it looks on the surface, signals weakness at a psychological level. Think about this. When you remove your opinions to keep the peace, you're not creating harmony. You're erasing yourself. When you avoid disagreement to appear understanding, you're training the other person to believe your boundaries don't matter. Over time, you stop being seen as a partner with depth and start being treated like emotional furniture. Useful, comfortable, but easily ignored. Attraction requires tension, not chaos. Not disrespect, but tension born from individuality. From two whole people standing in their own truth. A man who never challenges, never asserts, never risks disapproval is not safe. He's invisible. Safety doesn't come from submission. It comes from consistency and strength, from knowing that this person has a backbone even when it's inconvenient. Philosophically, being nice is often a way to avoid responsibility. Responsibility for saying what you want. Responsibility for standing by your values. Responsibility for walking away when something doesn't align. It's easier to perform goodness than to embody integrity. Integrity demands that you risk loss. Niceness tries to avoid it at all costs. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to be liked, you become more respectable. The moment you stop negotiating your worth, people start sensing it, not because you've become arrogant, but because you've become anchored. An anchored man doesn't rush. He doesn't over-explain. He doesn't trade his dignity for temporary affection. This isn't about being cold or dismissive. It's about being selective. A man with standards can still be gentle. He can still listen. He can still care deeply, but he does not abandon himself to be palatable. He does not confuse kindness with self-erasure. When you lead with self-respect, your kindness has weight. Your silence has meaning. Your presence feels intentional. And that is what creates attraction, not niceness, but authenticity, backed by inner authority. So ask yourself this honestly. Are you being kind because it reflects who you are? Or are you being nice because you're afraid of who you'll lose if you're not? That answer changes everything. Now we arrive at the part quietly determines everything else, even though most people avoid it. Choosing yourself, not in the shallow motivational quote sense, but in the psychological and philosophical sense where your decisions finally stop orbiting around someone else's approval. Because until you choose yourself, every relationship you enter will be a negotiation for worth. Most men think choosing yourself means becoming selfish or detached. That misunderstanding keeps them trapped. Choosing yourself is not about caring less about others. It's about caring enough about your own life that you stop offering it at a discount. It's about recognizing that your time, energy, and emotional presence are not infinite resources meant to be handed out to whoever asks the loudest. Psychologically, when you don't choose yourself, you outsource your identity. You begin to see yourself through someone else's reactions. If she's happy, you feel valuable. If she pulls away, you feel defective. Your inner world becomes reactive instead of grounded. And the problem with living reactively is that you are never in control. You're always adjusting, always guessing, always waiting for a signal that tells you who to be next. A man who chooses himself builds a life that exists independently of romantic validation. His purpose, routines, discipline, and values are not decorations. They are foundations. This doesn't make him emotionally unavailable. It makes him emotionally stable. And stability is what creates attraction that lasts, not the anxiety of someone who needs to be chosen to feel whole. Philosophically, choosing yourself is an act of responsibility. It's saying, I am accountable for the quality of my life, not my parents, not my partner, not my past wounds. Responsibility is heavy, which is why many people avoid it. But it's also liberating. Because the moment you stop waiting for someone to save you, you become free to build. This is where many men get stuck in relationships that slowly drain them. Not because the woman is wrong, but because the man abandoned his own direction to maintain connection. He stopped growing. He stopped challenging himself. He stopped prioritizing his evolution. And when a man stops choosing himself, he unconsciously asks the other person to carry his sense of meaning. That's too much weight for any relationship to survive. Choosing yourself means you are willing to be misunderstood. You are willing to disappoint. You are willing to lose people who only liked the version of you that was easy to access and easy to control. This is not arrogance. This is maturity. Because approval that costs you your integrity is not approval worth having. When you choose yourself, you stop asking, what do I need to do to keep her? And start asking, does this align with the man I'm becoming? That single shift changes how you speak, how you act, and what you tolerate. You no longer overinvest early. You no longer ignore red flags to avoid loneliness. You no longer mistake intensity for connection. And here's the quiet truth. Women don't feel safe with men who have no direction of their own. Safety doesn't come from constant availability. It comes from NCY, purpose, and self-leadership. A man who chooses himself is not clingy. He's composed. He's not chasing. He's inviting. This doesn't mean you never compromise. It means you never disappear. You can love deeply without dissolving. You can commit without shrinking. You can give without losing yourself, but only if you make a non-negotiable agreement with yourself first. The most attractive thing about a man who chooses himself is not his confidence, it's his calm. The calm of someone who knows he will be okay whether someone stays or leaves. That calm is earned, not performed. It comes from building a life you respect. So if there's one question to sit with, let it be this. Are you living in a way that makes you proud when no one is watching? Because the moment you choose yourself, you stop begging to be chosen, and that's when everything changes.